Wow. Wow. Well, thank you, Stephanie, so much for for sharing your screen there so we could all see. Um, just want to say right off the top that if you go to YouTube and you put in the search bar PFLAG Taking the Long Road Home, you can watch it again and again and again and again and and share it with folks that you love. Wow. So we're gonna jump right in. I'm so happy that Qiydaar is here with us. Um, and I want to start the kind of discussion by asking you to tell us a little more about what inspired you to affirm and document these journeys. We heard a little bit of your story in the film. Take us back to the beginning when you said, I've got to make a film. I've got to, in some ways, prove that we exist. We are possible. We are possible. Tell us what was going on in your mind when you first got the seed of an idea.
I wish I was that put together when I got the opportunity. The driving force of me making the film was trying to answer that question. I didn't know the answer. I'd been so far removed from church that I had to sit down and be honest with myself. Like, I didn't even know what church was at this point. I'd stopped going when I was 16. And so, the opportunity came to me via PFLAG, and I sort of said, this feels like I'm supposed to do this, because my original idea was something else. And then I kept getting pulled back to this, like, I'm supposed to do something else. I'm not supposed to do the original idea, which I still hope to do. And it's a very powerful subject, but it's a different thing. I feel like I needed to do this project and conduct these interviews to figure my own stuff out. And so when we started doing all the research and looking up reverends, I really wanted to have like a broad cross hatch of different experiences. I didn't want to just hear what I'd been through mirrored back to me by somebody else. Like, that's not productive for me or interesting to me as a filmmaker. So I was so glad to get like a huge swath of different people with different experiences. And I'd lost track of the question, but it's okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
I basically use this opportunity from a corporation to dive into something personal and say, if I'm going to have the support of this national organization that has my back, and they said they have my back, I'm going to put them to the test and see if they really are going to be the allies that I would need to make this film. And they were, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very happy about that. And in the process of making the film, I feel like I put to bed a lot of pain that I'd been holding on to for quite a long time. It's weird because I haven't watched the film in a minute, and I just watched it. Now I'm kind of like in this weird headspace again. But it's funny how far I feel from who I was when I started that project till now. It's like so far away, and it was not that long ago. It was over a year. So yeah, it was an amazing opportunity.
Shout out to PFLAG, PFLAG National.
With the allyship.
Yes, that put their money where their rhetoric is, right? Yes, to help create this wonderful story that is woven together so beautifully by Qiydaar and the whole production team. Watching it again now, I realize that I am so grateful that the framing of the film is the story and the journey, and not kind of biblical apologetics, which, I can't tell you how often I get invited to, can you tell us what the Bible does and does not say about homosexuality, right? Or let's fight about those 6 passages that, are the thorn in everybody's side, right? That this is not about that. This is about one's own personal journey. Did you hear anything this time watching the film that that sounded fresh or new to you again? Are you hearing it differently? Anything struck you this time watching the film that you want to sort of share with us?
I definitely I don't regret, but I wish I could redo my interviews. I'm just so awkward on camera. And, you know, it was the first time that I was really telling anyone anything about my life. You know, my best friend, who I've known for 20 something years, he emailed me after the film and he was like, I just learned so much more about you in that 32 minutes that I've known in all these years. And I had to step back like, man, I really, even with my closest friends, there's so many parts of my experience that I locked away and sort of kept trying to restart my life over and put those pieces in, you know, in the dark closet somewhere. So I was really struck by watching myself on camera, which sounds very narcissistic, but I don't mean it that way. It's just, I want to go and give myself a hug and be like, speak more freely. It's okay. Like, you're going to be okay. You know what I mean? But I was just so worried the whole time. It's just, you know, it's weird making yourself that vulnerable for public consumption. You know, I don't have to tell you stand on the pulpit and you talk to people. Like, that's not what I do. I'm trying to talk to people through art, you know, and there is a vulnerability that you have to get at least halfway comfortable with in order to succeed. So I'm still working on that comfortability. Y'all can tell I'm awkward right now, but thank you for all the comments. Well, I love it.
I just want to point out though, Qiydaar, that seems so queer to me. To say that I will heal by making myself more exposed, right? Which is so contrary. It's so countercultural, right? We think that we need to be buttoned up and well put together to project that image into the world. And actually, I think what the film shows is that in vulnerability, in saying, I can't lie anymore. So, you know, so much of the common thread that runs through so much of our stories is, I made a decision, I just couldn't lie anymore. That actually is what makes us strongest and sets us free. That vulnerability, it's counterintuitive, but the vulnerability, like breaking apart, is what actually gives you strength.
Yeah.
So, you know, where are you today? You've met all of us. We are now part of your life, whether you want us to be or not. We are all part of your community, and we've had these wonderful transformative conversations with you about our own faith journeys. How you said something very powerfully when we first started talking, that in telling your story and by doing this project, you could access your own healing. Tell us about where you are now. Like, where have you landed? Have you landed in a particular place in terms of your relationship to faith and to organized religion?
I think my faith standing is the strongest it's ever been, but I still have not landed on a physical church kind of situation. I've gone back and forth with it, and I don't know if that's gonna be part of my relationship with God, is being in four walls, you know, because I can walk at the beach, I can put my feet in the water, I can walk in the forest, I can walk in the street with headphones on, and I can feel something more that way than I really mostly felt inside buildings where I was supposed to feel spiritual. So I feel like spiritual experiences are very personal and individual. And so I don't think there's a one size fits all, no matter what people tell you. And I think that's just where my spirituality lay. It's more personal and communing with the spirit, and, you know, interpreting the dreams that I get, and speaking to my cousin who's also very spiritual. And she's actually done a lot of healing for me by acknowledging a lot of the stuff from my childhood that the rest of my family has ignored. So she's given me a gift in just recognition. So yeah, physical church, I don't know, but I mean, if y'all gonna invite me to a church, I might come and just see what y'all about. But but I don't belong to a church at this point.
Sure. And listen, Qiydaar, let me tell you this, I don't either. So part of what we're affirming is that faithfulness cannot be contained, right, in any box, including a 4-wall box, right, including a building. So you know, I just want to affirm that. Lots of people in the chat are talking about using the film in their faith communities, and so I shamelessly put the put the link in the chat and want to know, like, would you be willing to connect with anybody who wants to show the film in their locale?
Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean,
Okay,
it would probably be over Zoom because I'm not quite comfortable with the flying yet, but yeah, I would definitely would love it because I'm learning about other people. I'm learning about myself, and I think that's beautiful. That's really, like I told you when I met you, like if I had you and the other reverends around when I was a kid, like my entire experience would have been so much different, you know, but I'm happy to, within my lifetime, see so much change and hear so many different stories. So it gives you a sense of continuity that you're a part of something. You're part of a curve of progress, you know, which is nice.
One more question for you, Qiydaar, before we invite our gathered audience here to chat back with us.
Thank you, Chad.
Tell us why it was important for you to keep at the forefront of the conversation racial identity as well. So what really drew me to this project was it sought to keep the messiness of negotiating all of these different identities at the same time, right? Queerness, Blackness, gender identity, status as religious leader, right? And that journey. Why was it important for you to specifically talk about the journey of Black LGBTQ plus religious leaders and Christian leaders?
I think because I had not heard anyone really diving into that subject matter in my life. And also because my identity, I'm still in progress with a lot of it. When I was younger, I had a very combative relationship with the Black community because I was just different than what I was supposed to be. You know, I was reading books and being a big old nerd and listening to rock and roll, and I was supposed to be playing basketball and doing, you know, the sort of standard things I was expected to do. So I had a lot of bullying and pushback on that. And then I didn't come out till I was 33 because I had so much shame from the sort of church background of my family. So I'm still processing a lot of stuff. I'm the happiest I've ever been, and I'm the most comfortable with my body and my sexuality that I've ever been. But that's only happened in probably the last 6-7 years. So it took me a long time to get to this point. So again, another way that the film was healing was that I was able to sort of put that stuff on the forefront. You know, I lost so many years to playing respectability politics, and I have to be a very good Negro with my 9-to-5 job, and I have to present myself in this way, and God forbid I, you know, say anything messy or whatever the cause is. And now I'm sort of giving myself permission to just relax and be myself, and hopefully other people around me can have that same permission and feel the same way. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Carlton Jordan, who's a filmmaker, and he's always talking about, like, it's wonderful to have representation and have Black faces in media and in videos and film, but we're still trying to get over this hurdle of being able to be a complex person. Like, they'll put a Black character in the film, and then that Black character, since we get so few, they have to represent an entire community. So they have to be like this pitch perfect person with no flaws and everything. And it's like, there's no beauty in that, because the beauty in being a fully realized person is having contradictions and having paradoxes and being messy and being funny and being glorious and being beautiful and being wrong sometimes, you know? And so I'm glad that we're able to see all of that, you know, as a person. Did that answer?
I love that. No, I love. I mean, not no. Yes, yes,
yes, and okay.
I love that, and particularly appreciate how this keeps it complex, because I think a lot of queer stories get reduced so that they can be palatable to non-queer folks and non-trans folks, and so it just seems to me that you had a whole lot of respect for Black, queer, and trans experiences as complicated and complex and beautiful that they are, to keep those experiences at the center of the conversation and not try to make them kind of mainstream, you know, right? Not try to reduce them or simplify them, but keep them complex. Thank you. I wanna ask y'all. You all have seen the film now. What'd you think? Were there stories that struck you in particular ways? Are there questions that you have for Qiydaar, or even for me, if you have a question for me? Let's open up the mic. And feel free, if you don't want to come off mute, you can certainly put your question or comment in the chat.
Hi, so my name is Abby. I have a question. I love this film and I love the message, that talks about, God's acceptance, and that, no matter who you are or what you identify as, like, you're not beyond God's love. And I was thinking as I was watching it, I have a 15-year-old nephew who just came out as gay, and I really want to be a strong ally for him. And he's always been so spiritual. And so how do I foster that spirituality? I don't want to see that get squashed.
Mm-hmm. Reverend Naomi, give us some wisdom. Give us some wisdom.
Well, you know what? I think that what you just did is half the battle, kind of just acknowledging that he is a spiritual being, right? So much of what happens, the violence that happens to queer and trans folk when they come out, is that folk feel like they can then take possession of their, repossess, essentially, their faith and their spirituality. Well, that no longer applies to you, since but just being affirmed as a spiritual being, as a person who is going to be, queer and faithful, is a gift in a society that so often forces us to choose between being faithful and being queer or being trans, right? So I think that's the constant reinforcement of that affirmation would be really life-giving. And then, I think that, what I used to do in seminary was watch videos of people, for me, it was Black queer women who were talking about faith and spirituality. Like in the dark corners of the internet, I found the people who are now my friends and spiritual mentors and advisors. Like, my life has come full circle and now I'm connected to these folks. So I think that, filling up his toolbox with examples of what's possible, right? So that he can begin to imagine himself as an older queer person of faith, right? That this, you can actually live and thrive as a queer person of faith, right? And so I put in the chat, again, I put it earlier, I'll put it again. PFLAG has compiled this list of resources, faith resources for people who, after they see the film, want to connect. And so you can see those right there in the Long Road Home discussion guide there.
Yeah, great.
I think just being exposed, the more exposure, my wife and I marvel that we now, like, we ain't heard a homophobic sermon since, isn't that wonderful? Because you're like, man, I haven't met a homophobe in church since, like we wistfully look back, right? Because we have curated our lives such that nonsense is not welcome. And so we surround ourselves with folks who are going to love us well, right? And who understand our faith, right? So I think the more you can kind of introduce him to folks, he won't even need to entertain the idea of being in some estranged relationship with a homophobic faith community, because there's so many other options, right? So I just lift those up as a couple of suggestions. Anybody else want to share answers to this?
I just want to piggyback on that really fast, because I'm thinking back on something that Reverend Michael had said in an interview, which didn't make it in the final film because we didn't have space for it. But he had talked about coming out to his mother and his family. And there was a moment where he said, the best thing that you can do as an ally or a parent or a relative of someone coming out the closet is really just to give them space. He said, you don't have to understand every single aspect of their journey. You don't have to understand every single aspect of their identity or you may not have all the language and all the tools, but he said, the beautiful thing is that you give them space to figure it out, because, that might be just the first leg of their journey. They may have another transition or identity that they're going to evolve into at some point. And I wish we were able to put that in the film, but I remember that because I was just like, oh, that's really beautiful to sort of give people space to be who they are and let them figure it out, So that's my
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Good luck.
Yeah. Anybody else want to offer a comment about the film, your experience of the film, and question?
If you didn't like it, that's okay too. You just we're not trying to censor y'all.
I personally liked it a lot, and I think this is a really good film to share with our church. Our church is in the process of getting being a reconciling in Christ church, where we can at least explicitly tell to the world that we are inclusive and all that. And we're just going through the journey, and we're always looking for resources. And, fortunately, we're already with the faith-based group in the Philadelphia area. So we got the announcement from Pastor Naomi. So thank you. And so there, you never know, you'll probably be hearing from us and inviting you to a Zoom when we go through this showing, because I think this is a really good film, excellent film. And it really touches on a lot of points that we need to share with people, particularly those members of our church that are yet not accepting, especially the homophobes that you're referring to. There are, I was shocked to find out somebody made a really homophobic comment, and I didn't hear it personally, but another friend told me about it. I was totally blown, and I just thought, all this time I thought our church was always so welcoming. It's been so welcoming that, but you will always have people kind of hiding certain things, and then during the conversation it comes up, and I mentioned it to our pastor, and she says, she disagreed with the comment that was made, as did the rest. This was during adult Sunday school, and as the rest of the circle did. So we were glad that the rest of the circle disagreed, but those are the people that we want to share this with, because the rest of the people who disagreed with them are already in, they're already in a journey with us. We want that to pull along that individual into the journey to understand and that get past the prejudices about people because of, the color of their skin or their identity. So anyway, thank you, Qiydaar. I think this is an absolutely brilliant film.
Thank you, Bill. I mean, honestly, that's kind of why I was so happy that we were able to include the Wileys in there. They were doing this kind of work well before it was trendy or before it was acceptable. And, they were in the South, and they just had to deal with so much pushback, and, they lost preaching engagements, and they lost people in their congregation, walked out after they started performing the same-sex ceremonies. But they also told me that it was kind of the best thing to happen to their church, because more inclusive, loving people came into the church. And then some of their deacons split off and started their own churches. So they actually were able to expand in love after the hate got pushed out. So I'm sorry you're in that situation, but I think if you keep moving forward and keep your faith and keep fighting that good fight, I think at some point there's going to be a curve, the bell curve, and it's going to turn in your favor. And there's going to be a lot of love in that church, and get rid of it. And you know what? I don't even want to discount the people who are hateful, because maybe they came to church to change their own heart. We don't really know what their experience is, but I would hope that being surrounded by love and inclusivity and positivity and diversity would change their hearts. you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I sound like a preacher now. Oh, let me find out.
I was gonna say, look, you were quoting scripture earlier. I wasn't gonna say nothing, but you. So yeah, you hang around ministers for too long, and you find yourself, yes.
It's rubbing off on me.
Right. And Anastasia's got a hand up, and then we'll go to Amelia.
Okay.
Hi, I am joining you from Brooklyn, New York. I happen to see the announcement about this screening and discussion from your Instagram page, Reverend Naomi. So thank you for sharing about that. And I wanted to thank you. I just want to pronounce your name correctly. It's Qiydaar?
Yes, Qiydaar.
Qiydaar, okay. Thank you so much, Qiydaar, for creating this film. It has touched me deeply. Just to share very, very quickly about my story. So literally tomorrow makes it 1 week since I publicly came out as queer on social media. And this is my first Pride Month. Actually, like claiming my queerness after living in denial and repression for 20 years. I spent most of those 20 years in various ways in conservative white evangelical spaces, you know, in high school, in college, and then in my post-grad years. And I finally kind of left that space in July of 2020, just as everything was happening, you know, with the pandemic and, you know, just the calls for racial justice and what have you. And so since then until now, I've just been on this like winding journey of reclaiming my Blackness, of really affirming my being a Black woman, and finally coming home to myself and realizing like I actually am queer and there's nothing wrong with me being queer and I'm loved just as I am. And I've really just been looking for and looking to just in particular Black queer people who love Jesus. And that's why I'm so glad to have come across this film and to come across just both of you. So I just want to say thank you. I'm still figuring out what this journey looks like for me. I would actually like to go to seminary to become a chaplain. I honestly, yeah, just the institutional church as it is in the United States, I just don't feel comfortable with it for many reasons, but that's another story for another time. But in any case, it brings me a lot of comfort and reassurance just to hear that both of you, pardon me, that you love Jesus and you have found community, even though it is outside of the four walls, you know, of the church. So thank you just for sharing. And yes, even just your stories have deeply impacted me. So thank you again.
Oh, thank you, Anastasia.
Wow.
I said it fancy,
Wow.
Anastasia.
Wow, thank you so much. Listen, what if we had chaplains all over who could help with some of the rage, some of the loss, some of the grief, some of the trauma? I just, you know, and it took me marrying a chaplain to really understand how important that work is, and just chaplains, their constitutional makeup, right? We need more folk like that. So kudos to you. And I know I'm gonna commit to walking alongside you as you journey. So yes.
Thank you. That means so much.
Yes, and we've got Judith in the chat saying thank you from a chaplain. Yes.
Okay.
Chaplains in the house. Yes, I love it. Amelia, yes, go ahead.
Hi, first, the film was amazing. I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but it was, you know, I just heard about it today, but it was fascinating, especially as someone who is obviously not Black and also not particularly religious. It was really fascinating to sort of see the different layers that there are to that journey. And one of the things that you said really stuck with me about, presenting, because you were Black, already trying to present, like flawless and perfect, and, knowing that you already have to present as perfect. And then the added layer of, figuring out your sexuality and that not fitting into that definition of perfect was really eye-opening, because it sort of put words to a feeling that, I understand, and, obviously different contexts, but, I'm the oldest child of, one of my parents is an immigrant, and like, there's these expectations of, this is what you must be, and this is what you must do. And, my parents were both very supportive of me when I came out a couple of years ago, but it's still, there's still definitely moments when it's like, this doesn't fit into the definition of who I am supposed to be. And, I was just sort of curious to hear a little bit more maybe about, like, were there any specific realizations that you were like, oh, this is, now I understand why, like, I can have a looser and more general definition of who I am, and it can include my sexuality.
Reverend?
When you were talking, and Amelia, it's good to see you again. Hey. While you were talking, it made me think about seminary and coming out to myself in seminary and coming out more publicly in seminary, while at the same time learning to read sacred text in more generous and expansive ways, right? Those two processes were happening simultaneously, coming to know myself in more expansive ways, like, oh, it's possible to love this way and not just this way. To me, queerness is just about spaciousness, right? Instead of one possibility, there are 72, right? And then to learn that this sacred text also includes a kind of spaciousness, that sometimes God is she, and sometimes God is he, and sometimes God is spirit, genderless spirit, and sometimes, Jesus is crying, and sometimes Jesus is like cussing people out, and sometimes Jesus, right? Like, it is the work of, I think, oppression to slice and dice, right? To reduce, to shrink, to simplify. But creation is so full of complexity and mystery and things that just simply will not be explained. And so why not human beings? Why not sexuality? So for me, I guess the intellectual expansion and the spiritual expansion I got in seminary forced me to think then broadly about my own self and my own identity. So that's why they're related to me, right? If we think in narrow ways about ourselves, we're going to automatically think in narrow ways about God, right? So I'm on a mission to just queer everything all the time, whether people are queer or not, right? Because what queering means is give it some more space, expand that thing. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. Look at you still giving me gems. Oh my God, about to make another movie.
Part 2.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Amelia, for your question. I really don't know how to answer it because I'm still trying to dismantle a lot of the walls and the boundaries that I was raised with. I had a therapy session, my very first therapy session that I ever went to. I started bawling tears because the therapist listened to me for like 15 minutes and he was like, oh, so you put up walls to protect yourself. You put up boundaries to protect yourself, and then those boundaries became immovable walls. And I was like, oh man, it just started coming out. Like, it's just true. Like, I was raised with a very specific way that people are supposed to behave. And I'm slowly dismantling, and it's such a scary, weird process, And right now I'm I'm sort of trying to embark on a journey of finding my dad. And I think I may have found him with DNA testing, but then now it's like, I'm claiming my Afro-Latino heritage. And now I'm hitting another wall where Black people are like, oh, so being just Black is not good enough for you. And then Latin people, you're not Latin enough for our community. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you smash down a wall, you smash down a box, you jump over a hurdle, and there's always going to be some other thing that gets in the way. And so I'm still trying to like integrate all these different aspects of myself into myself. You know, it's just, even if I'm dating someone and I hold their hand in the street, I still get that little twinge of like, what if somebody sees me and says something? What do I have to fight? Like, what, you know what I mean? And at this point, I shouldn't even have to think about that, you know? But I see kids that are 15, 16 in the street now, and they are fully immersed in their identity. And I'm just like, I don't mind the suffering that I did, because I'm seeing the results of it. And I'm seeing people like you who, you know, are being who you are. And I think that's beautiful. And that's, you know, we all got work to do. I'm not going to sit here and paint a rosy picture. We all got work to do. And it's tough.
Yeah.
It's
I
tough.
love that. I love that. That if we could just leave, if we can leave our kids, our queer kids, our trans kids, with none of the baggage that we inherited, right? If we can just stop that generational kind of transmission of baggage with us, you know, because that's a trauma response, Qiydaar, what you're describing. And I feel like a lot of queer and trans people, we still had that little, I can't turn off the use of scripture in my head, you know, but now I know how to talk back to that voice, right? And talk back to that. So yeah, if we can just, if that can be our legacy, right? We carried the baggage so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Right. That's the goal.
Yep. Leave them better than you found them.
Right.
I just want to say that has now brought me almost to tears. Like that's just very, you know, to think about. I don't know that there are a lot of other communities that are so focused on almost this selfless, like, how, you know, I went through all of this, how can I keep the younger generation from not going through this? And it's just, you know, being the younger generation, it is something that is seen and heard and like is so meaningful. Like, it's, you know, I know that my generation has a tendency to be somewhat ungrateful at times, but like I want to be so clear that, like, you know, I see and I recognize, you know, the pain that my like queer elders have gone through and the work that they're doing to keep me from that pain. And it brings me almost to tears. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We're all part of a
Thank you.
continuum. You are not by yourself, and you're not
That's
alone.
right.
And there
That's
are plenty
right.
of other people going through the same thing. And every generation is a little ungrateful to the previous generation.
Right. That's right.
No.
No, I love that. My spiritual mentor, who's also a Black queer Christian minister, Lanice Pinkard, Reverend Lanice Pinkard, she says that we are not individually salvageable. We are only salvageable in community. And this is a sobering reminder, right? That it's not possible for us to save ourselves. It's not possible. You know, and Stephanie knows I love to use this drowning kind of metaphor, that it's nearly impossible to kind of save yourself from drowning. The physics is working against you, and then your anxiety, and then you're done, right? We have to be saved in community by others. And so we hope that this film is going to contribute to people feeling like they've been rescued, like they can breathe now, right? That by our stories, you can be healed. We hope, right? So thank you so much. I want to just leave the mic open for any kind of final thoughts or final questions or comments.
I see all your comments in the chat, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, Stephanie. I see y'all.
Qiydaar, tell them how they can find you on Instagram, or however you want people to find you if they want to invite you.
I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Director Key, Key. So you can find me any of those places. And yeah, invite me. I'll come meet y'all, come speak. I don't know, bring virtual bread. I don't know. The metaphor is lost. I don't know what's going on right now. I haven't been to church in forever, y'all. Can you tell?
That's okay. That's okay. We know what you meant. We know what you meant to say. So I put Qiydaar's handle in the chat. I also put my own handle, Oh Holy Shift, in the chat. So if you want to reach out to us, feel free.
Thank you.
I put the YouTube link in the chat and the page on pflag.org. If you go to pflag.org/taking the long road home, you can watch the film and you can download those resources so that you can use them at your disposal. I want to say thank you to Stephanie and our fearless team over there at Philadelphia Family Pride for convening this space for us. And thank you to PFLAG Philadelphia and PFLAG National for just being a dope partner. Yeah, thank you all for coming. Share the links with anybody you know. Qiydaar, you got the last word.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your showing up. I appreciate you watching the film and your thoughts and your feedback and sharing your experiences. Thank you, Reverend Naomi, for being my linchpin to finding my way into figuring out the project. Because honestly, your quote was the first thing that I saw when I was researching, and I said, I have to speak to her. I have to speak to her. And it really informed the whole thing. The goal was the whole film to feel like a discussion between all these people in different locations. So I think we got pretty close to that. So
we did.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And I hope the resources work and help you out and help guide discussions for you, and that you can have these discussions if maybe you felt like you couldn't. Maybe you have a little bit of a little roadmap now. So thank you all. I appreciate you. I know it's late over there. So I hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care of your loved ones. Take care of yourself. You can't serve from an empty bowl, okay?
All right. See, you preaching. That was a sermon close.
I was just thinking the same.
I told you. Don't let it grab you. Once it grabs you, it won't let you go. Thank you so much. Stephanie, anything?
No, I'll send all these links to folks via email, and also for the folks who couldn't make it, so that they have that information. And then in the email, I'll also put some information about our Juneteenth Family Pride Picnic, which is coming up Saturday. It's not on the 19th. It's on Saturday, June 18th in Mount Airy at the Lovett Library Park. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. All right. Thank you all so much. And we'll see y'all later.
Thank you guys too. Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.